Hi, thank you for clicking on the video. In today's video, I'm going to kind of just lay out how I became a six-figure creator working from my home and really only working about 10 hours a week on average. This is not going to be like a highly edited video. In fact, this will probably just be a one-take video. And I've got some notes here, so I'm just going to lay out sort of how I was able to, after 10 years or so, was able to force my way into becoming a stay-at-home creator and making six figures doing so. And I think that it's time that I share this knowledge because I have built my career off the backs of a lot of other people and the advice that they shared with me. So it's only right that I return the favor. So we'll get straight into it. Like I said, right now I only work about 10 hours a week on average. Now that can vary. Some weeks it could be 5 hours. Some weeks it could be 25 hours, depending on like if I have a lot going on like out in the field. And if you have never seen my channel or my work before, I am a self-proclaimed cinematographer and photographer and a professional at it because I do make my living that way. I do a lot of commercials. I tape a lot of podcasts for people. I do lip dubs. I filmed over 100 weddings. I do a lot of video production and then photography as well. So that's what my craft is, and that's what I create. But I'm in a very small town in Mississippi, and so a lot of this is going to be based on, and it's really a testament to, I think it's even something more to be proud of because, if I was like in downtown Seattle or Atlanta or Memphis or Houston, my story would be a lot different. And so if you are in a rural area, this should help you a lot because I've had to reverse engineer and figure out how to make this work. Some advice that maybe somebody could give me in New York City is just not going to work here where I live in a town of less than 20,000 people. But we'll get into that too. So the first thing I would say is, and just to give you a little bit of my background, sorry my phone's going off, a little bit of my background, I worked for several production companies around the country, and also I worked on several TV shows, and the production companies I worked for were very commercial centric. Like we would do a lot of commercials and brand content for really big brands like Home Depot and the Weather Channel and Makita, Mahindra, a lot of like outdoors brands, a lot of tool brands. And then I've done several, political commercials for senators and things like that. And there's a lot. I'm not going to go through my whole portfolio, but my background is I did work for production companies and I worked in television. And so that was like the 6 to 10 years of gathering knowledge that I now have taken and apply in my own business and my own life. And that's something that does set me apart here in my small town is I have so much experience in kind of like mid to high end production world that I just duplicate that over into my one-man band scenario that I've got here, and it makes my work stand out, and my clients are typically very impressed with the workflow and just the communication, and then the polished product at the end definitely helps. So that's my background, but I would say you need to develop a specific skill set. Of course, as you know now, mine is video production or cinematography, and I offer an all-inclusive service. So you can come to me and tell me what your end goal is. It might be getting elected to an office. It might be selling a product. It might be promoting an event. Whatever it is, we'll look at that end goal, and then I will build out a plan and a workflow from start to finish. So scripting, or pre-production with scripting, production, on-site production, post-production with the editing, delivery, and even consulting on the distribution side of things, which my clients around here, they definitely need that just because they don't have a ton of experience that they have in that. They have a goal they want to reach. I have the tools and the skills to do it, and so we just combine those, and I try to make it as easy on my clients as possible. So if you're a graphic designer, if you're a videographer, if you're a photographer, if you're a copywriter, if you're a web designer, the most important thing is to be the absolute best around at what you do. Now, it's not to say that there's not another videographer down the street that's really good or even better than me, but my goal is to always be the absolute best that I can be, and honestly is to be the best around. And that's kind of always been my mindset. I grew up with really three passions, which was film, music, and soccer. And I've always sort of been at the top of all three of those marks. Even, with soccer, I went on to play college soccer, and then I played a lot of adult soccer after that. I still play. With music, I play guitar and sing, and have always just kind of strived in that. And if there was a guy next to me or down the street per se that was also doing that, I don't want to, I don't wish any ill will on anybody, but I'm going to be better. That's just my mindset. And so you want to be the absolute best around at what you do, no matter what it is. The next thing I have written here is networking. Like I said, I work 10 hours a week, 10 to 25 hours a week, and I'm in my home right now. Like, you can probably see my kids' drawings in the back. I have 3 kids, and that allows me to really focus on my family. And I coach soccer, 2 soccer teams full time, and run the clubs and marketing, all for free. But that's because I've set my life up in this way. But networking is still super important. And the way that I kind of force this into my life, because it is easy to get lost in, this empty house during the day when the kids are at school doing my editing. It's harder to network. So what I do is I specifically set aside an hour or 2 per day to go do work with my laptop, or just to go network in another place. So for example, we have a nice local coffee shop here, which pretty much everybody passes through, all the politicians, all the mayors, all the business owners, just all the people who go to church with us. I mean, it's just a lot of people. And so I will set up there after I drop the kids off from school, say from 8 to 10:30, and I can still get work done there. I get that little bit of social interaction, and the amount of jobs that have come through that door are just incredible. Because people will come through and they'll see me editing, or maybe they already know me, and it kind of reminds them like, oh yeah, we have this project coming up. I think a video would be really good for it. Or, oh, I've been meaning to call you. I haven't seen you. I've been meaning to get in touch with you. And it's just like a good way to network without it being like a, slap your name on a sticker, I'm at a networking event. And it's daily. You can do it daily. I didn't do it today. It's Monday morning. I really probably should have, but I had a lot of editing to do that would require like a big screen. When you're editing on a little laptop, it can be a little harder. But networking is super important, especially if you're working for a big company. There's probably people in the company doing the networking, and then that you're in the pipeline somewhere doing the editing, doing the shooting, doing the graphic design. But when you're a company of 1 or a company of 3 like we are, I do have 2 other people that are kind of inserted into the workflow. It's really important that you do your own networking, and I like it on an organic basis, right? So if you attend church, that's a good way to do it. Not that you should just go to church to network, but it is a good place, and people will find out who you are. Like I said, at the coffee shop, sometimes I'll just kind of peruse through town, or I'll go to the neighboring towns. And that's the next thing I want to get into is in my town. Yes, we're a small town. There's like a limited amount of work that I could do, but we're surrounded by 3 or 4 towns of the same size, and then 2 to 3 towns of quadruple size. So we do have a small metropolitan town 20 minutes from me. So I'm like on the suburbs of that. And then there's one about an hour south, and there's one about 45 minutes north. And so those are huge markets. Yes, they have videographers, but you can still build relationships in those neighboring towns. And there's a lot of, build relationships with your fellow creators, because there's a lot of situations I'll get a call where this videographer says, hey, I'm really swamped, or hey, I don't really like to do these types of videos, so I gave them your number, hope that's okay. And you'd be surprised, how much work you'll get from other creators. And so if you're in a small town like me, don't just limit yourself to your town. I actually spend most of those hours I mentioned driving, because I live on the Mississippi Gulf Coast, and there's a long line of towns that goes from New Orleans to Mobile and all of these little towns in between. And there's just one interstate that just goes all the way through. It takes about an hour and a half to get from one side to the other, maybe 2 hours. But that whole strip is where all my clientele is, and then also here in my town. So like broaden your horizons a little bit as a creator. And for me, I do have to do a lot of on-site filming and whatnot. But if you're a graphic designer, if you're a web-based guy, your story is going to be way different. And you have, honestly, more potential than even I do, because you can do stuff for people all over the world. But I'm just speaking from my experience, and something that a web designer or graphic designer or a video editor for that matter would probably experience is something I'm doing right now. I'm editing 2 videos for a company that is in Seattle or Washington State, somewhere, not quite Seattle, but somewhere in Washington State, and they make a product, and they just needed 2 videos for their marketing, and they found me on YouTube, right? And that's where I'm going to kind of lead into now is diversifying. Like, you have your specific skill, right? You don't want to diversify too much on that. Like, I'm not trying to be everybody's graphic designer. I'm not trying to be people's web designer. I'm actually trying to just be the videographer and then edit my work. But within that, I would diversify my clientele. So there's different seasons of the year that I can really take advantage of. Right now, it's political season. Like, every town I just mentioned, they have multiple candidates running for mayor. And so if I can book one in each town, that's good revenue that can come in. And those are fairly easy and fun videos to make, because you're just trying to tell that person's story. And then, I do lip dubs for schools. And so the end of the year is coming. There's a lot to do there. Let's say you want to get into filming or providing video coverage of like graduations. You could book 2 or 3 of those, as long as the dates don't correspond on top of each other. Wedding season is a whole season. The only time I would say that times really get slow for me and I just kind of stockpile, I just basically plan on not working in December. And just if the job or something comes, I just look at it as a bonus, but I just assume there's going to be no work for me in December, because everybody's spending their money on Christmas and people are getting ready for that. And they're getting ready for the marketing budgets of the next year. Now, I have had the last 2 Christmases have actually been pretty busy. But I just assume they're not going to be. That way I'm not disappointed when those years came that they weren't. But yeah, you want to diversify your clientele, you diversify your work within, right, your skill set that you have polished. The next thing is going to be, something that I took from Dale Carnegie. If you've never read the book, How to Win Friends and Influence People, I'll have the link in the description if you want to check that book out, either Audible or, get a paperback copy. But that book is all about, how to make people like you. And that's a very valuable skill, because if you're in a market like me where you have a limited clientele, it's really important to hold on to that clientele. It's very important to make them happy. And, clients can be hard to deal with, especially when they don't know anything about video or they don't know anything about graphic design, or, you're kind of having to handhold them through stuff. But if you'll power through that and really put their needs first and serve them, you'll find that if you do 10 jobs for them throughout the year, they might be difficult on one of the jobs, but just kill them with kindness. Like, read that book, do everything that book says, really just serve them. And you'll find the other 9 times that they hire you, they're really easy. So you might have to endure a little bit of snaggles here and there, but it really does pay to be kind to people. And I will tell you that I have this story, I'll just tell you real quick, where I had a wedding client recently who was very, very upset about their photographer, and I was the videographer. And I was kind of getting some of the backlash from that, because I got emails saying, hey, you said it was going to be, a quick turnaround, this, that, and the other. Well, the contract actually says 90 days. It had only been 40 days when I got that email. Now, I could have, come back to them and said, go read the contract. I just could have came back all snarky. But I actually just used the Dale Carnegie approach, and I sent an email back. I understand it's going to be really frustrating, especially when you're very anxious to see your wedding film. I assure you that we are working hard on making it the absolute best that it can be. We don't want to rush it, but we definitely will beat the stated deadline in the contract, which is 90 days. And I ended up getting it done about 4 days after that, sent it over, and then I also included like really high-res 6K stills from the video. And the mom called me very like apologetic. So I'm so sorry I sent that email. You know, I wasn't mad at you. I was mad at the photographer. The photos were terrible. You provided all these stills and they're better than the photographers, and we're going to use these to make their album. Thank you so much. You didn't have to do that, blah, blah, blah. Right. And now she'll recommend me. Right. And, you know, we get real caught up in our feels sometimes, and I'm guilty of it too. But if you can just separate the emotion and let others be emotional, right? Just be nice. Just be nice. And what I do too is, this is a funny little trick you guys can try. I built a custom GPT to reply to people, but what you can do is you can type all the snarky, you know, backtalky stuff you want to say to that person, the stuff you're thinking. You can type that into ChatGPT. Just get it all out, right? And then right at the end say, now turn this into a polite message with no ill feelings. And it will do that. It will transform. It will say the same thing you want to say, but it will transform it into a polite, kill you with kindness approach. And that tackles two things. You got all your anger out with the typing, right? But then you had ChatGPT reframe it to be positive, understanding, and kind. And your client's happy. You got to get your frustration out without anybody ever knowing. And so that's just like a little hack. I will use that sometimes to like vent to ChatGPT and just be like, you know what? I'm just going to wait 90 days until I give it to you. You're going to get it on day 90 at midnight. And then I'll tell ChatGPT to, you know, please change that completely. But the next thing I want to talk about, and it's kind of tied into that diversify point, is to, you know, find multiple income streams. So a lot of my work is start to finish. Like they'll contact me and I will do pretty much everything start to finish. The consulting in the beginning, the pre-production, production, post-production, distribution, all the way through, right? And those can be lucrative because you can charge for each individual step. Then there are some clients, like the clients I'm working for now, who have all the footage. They know what they want. They have it all written out. They just need somebody to piece it together. Again, if you look at it by the hour, those can be very lucrative because they're giving you all the puzzle pieces. You just got to stitch them together real quick, make sure they're happy, and you're on your way. Those per hour, those probably pay the most, right? And then there's YouTube, you know, and social media and stuff like that. Like I actually do bring in a good bit of revenue, even though I only have, at this taping, I only have 1,500 subscribers. I bring in a decent amount of revenue between the ad revenue and all the affiliate links that I have for the different products that I've reviewed. And then a lot of my clientele comes in through YouTube. Sometimes I don't really understand how or why. I guess they'll just see my content. They're like, oh, he can make decent videos for himself, so surely he can make good videos for us. Or they do see like a portfolio piece on my YouTube. But yeah, so if you live in a small area, you can definitely make six figures with your creativity. You got to stay positive. You've got to wake up every day, in my opinion, assuming that you're going to achieve whatever goal it is that you make. I'm a big believer in whatever you put out comes back. So if you wake up and you just assume or think that, man, there's just no way I can do this. It's too small of a market. It's too small of a town. You know, even here down in South Mississippi, there is a crap ton of photographers. There is a ton of videographers. And I never really think of them as competition because I have a very specific skill set. You know, like if I really had to boil it down, like I'm a documentary filmmaker, but you know, those skills can be applied in so many other areas. And people are not purchasing, most of the time, people are not purchasing my videos. They're purchasing the opportunity to work with me. And I keep things as positive and as easy as possible for them. And that's why my clients normally just come back because they know what they're going to get. And they know that they can talk with me openly and freely, and we're going to get the job done. So that's pretty much the end of the video. I appreciate you guys watching. If you liked this content, if you found it helpful, like and subscribe. Consider all that. And then if you have any tips and tricks that I could use, I'm always trying to improve my process, put it down in the comments. If you are a six-figure creator, especially in a rural area, I'd love to hear from you and connect with you. So yeah, stay tuned for more content like this and have a great day.